Hey guys, it's Jay, and today I'm bringing you my first ever VR game review. But before we get started, I want to let you in on a few things. Number one, the gameplay is going to be slightly lower resolution because it's being recorded from the split screen with the VR, the social screen. Also, I'm going to do my best to avoid spoilers, but in case I do end up slipping a spoiler in here, I'm going to put spoiler alerts in the bottom right of the screen along with the time that you need to go to in order to skip past the spoiler. Let's get to it. So probably the most important aspect of any game is the gameplay itself. And I thought that Arkham VR was pretty good with gameplay. I end up giving it a 7 out of 10. It's very interactive. That's the best part about the whole thing, is how interactive it is. There's a ton of things that you can pick up and move around. If you didn't know, this uses the Move controllers rather than a D-pad, or a DS4 rather. So it's very motion tracked. You have hands in the game. You can interact with everything. It does a great job of limiting actual button presses. The only buttons that you actually use is the big move button on the center of the controller and the trigger itself. And I think that's really important for VR games. The more you can limit actual button presses, the better the game will be. The problems with it, and there are a few. Number one, it holds your hand a lot. Like, there's no action in the game. It's supposed to be a detective story, and overall, the puzzles are all really easy. And the reason the puzzles are so easy is because Batman is telling you what to do the entire time. It's like, you show up at the beginning of the scene and Batman's like, I should use this gadget to do this. And so then you do that. And then he's like, I should move over here and use this gadget to do that. So you move over there and do that. And he's like, it looks like this is the situation. And then it moves on to the next thing. And it's like, why not let me actually figure some of this stuff out? Now, it does get better later on with the Riddler puzzles. Once you beat the game, you go back into it and you play through it all again, but this time there's a bunch of Riddler puzzles spread throughout, and those are actually kind of tricky. I've been stumped by several of them. I haven't actually figured all of them out just yet, but the actual game itself is very easy. It almost feels like the entire game is a tutorial, and by the time you get out of the tutorial, the game's over. And another problem I have is there's no movement. Like, it's stand in one place and it's teleport movement. So you look where you want to go, and there's a move controller with a bat symbol will pop up, and you hit the move button, and then you're over there. So if you're at the piano and you want to be at the globe, you just click over to the globe, and there you are. I think that they could have made it a lot better just by having you actually walk where you want to go. There are games out there that do locomotion with the Move controllers. It is not an impossible thing to do, even though it doesn't have an analog stick. And I think that that would have made the game a whole lot better, actually, to be able to walk around. Like, these areas are not that big to begin with. It wouldn't have taken too much to let us actually explore them. And my other problem with it is there's no vehicle time. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for vehicle time, especially once you start unlocking more vehicles. Like, you start out with the Batwing and the Batmobile from Arkham, but then you can unlock lots of different vehicles. One of them is the 1960s Batmobile, which is really cool, and you're able to move them all around in the Bat Garage and get a good look at them, but you can't actually be in them. And what happens is you pull up the vehicle and then you launch to the area you want to go, and the screen goes to black, and then you just hear sound effects of driving or flying or whatever, and then the screen comes back and you're in that area. I feel like it would have been a lot better if, even if it's just a cutscene, just, let me actually see myself in the cockpit of the Batmobile, looking around. Even if you don't give me the ability to drive the Batmobile, just give me a cutscene of it at least. And then, of course, you could implement the other unlockable vehicles. Like, I could be in the 1960s Batmobile, or I could be in the Tumbler from Batman Begins, something like that. So ultimately, like I said, because it's so interactive and because of the Riddler puzzles, the gameplay actually is pretty good. I gave it a 7 out of 10, and I would have given it a 10 out of 10 if they would have done any of those other things. Or just stop with the tutorials and let me actually figure the game out. As for the story, I'm giving that a 4 out of 10. And the reason I'm giving it such a low score is because there's pretty much no story in this game at all, honestly. It takes about 40 minutes to finish the entire game. The majority of that, or not the majority, but the largest portion of that is done in the Batcave. So it's just really, really short. There's nothing to the story at all. Mostly, the entire game is just pandering to fans. Like, the whole part where you're going down the elevator and you're putting on the bat suit and all this stuff, it's just nothing but fanfare. And I'm sure that a lot of fans of Batman are like, wow, this is awesome, I'm Batman. But to me, like, I was looking forward to a good detective game, and I was okay with it being Batman. I was not looking forward to a Batman game. And what I ended up getting was a whole lot of, now you have the bat gloves on, now you have the cowl on, now you can use the batarangs, and, you know, it's just kind of not that great to me. Like, and another thing to me is, like, there were several points in this game where I was thinking, you know, Batman is a dick. Like, Batman has... Yeah, okay, Batman has always had crazy technology, but it's always been more existing technology that he's taken to the next level. Like, grappling hooks exist, but they don't exist in the form that Batman has them. You know, fast cars exist, but they don't exist with the kind of stuff Batman's got. And he's got his own plane, and he's got the, like, you know, his throwing knives are shaped like bats and stuff like that. Like, he's always had high-tech stuff. His mask has night vision and everything else. But this Batman has, like, completely non-existent technology that would be useful to a lot of people. Like, there's a scene where you're investigating some people, and, like, he's got an X-ray flashlight that can switch between bone X-ray and muscle X-ray. I'm just watching this like, wait, how does Bruce Wayne have this technology, but every hospital in the world doesn't have this technology? Like, this could save millions of lives. And sure, I'm sure it's expensive, but I mean, you got to get this stuff into the hands of people who can actually use it. And then there's a scene where Batman literally DVRs a fight. Like, he shows up at the scene where a fight took place, and he scans it, and then he's able to fast forward or play forward and reverse and pause and walk around and get different viewpoints of a fight that took place. Like, how is this not something, like, every single police department in the country should have at least one of these things. Like, I mean, it takes the detective work out of detectiving. Like, it's ridiculous that Batman has all this stuff, and, you know, either this technology does exist and everyone should have it, or this technology does not exist and Batman shouldn't have it. But that kind of took me out of it. I'm sorry, there's a point where you've gone too far with the technology, and it kind of hurts the experience to me. So 4 out of 10 for the story. But Arkham VR does have one glowing point to it, and that is the graphics. The graphics are great for virtual reality. The only problem I had with the graphics was that I didn't feel like the scale was that great sometimes. There are parts where you're face to face with another person, and to me, that person just looks a little bit too big. It just doesn't feel natural to me, and that's a problem I've seen with other games as well, but I'm not going to mention those until I do those reviews. Yeah, I feel like the scale was a little off. Now, to be fair, my friends disagree. I've mentioned this to everyone who's played it, and they all say that I'm crazy, that it felt pretty good to them. So maybe it's just me, but I thought the scale was a little bad, and because of that, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 for graphics. And for VR sickness, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. A lot of people played my VR this weekend. A lot of them did feel some sickness. None of them felt it in Batman. It's a very smooth game. It's a very good game. I've heard a lot of people talking about, like, their hands jittering in the game, and I didn't notice anything like that. I also didn't notice any kind of problem with tracking of the headset in this game. In other games, I've noticed the headset will drift slightly to the left or drift slightly to the right. In Batman, it felt very good, and it's a very well-made game. You can tell that it was a major studio that put a decent amount of time into developing the game. So VR sickness is a 10 out of 10, and overall, I'll give this game a 7 out of 10. I would say that because it's short and because it kind of holds your hand the whole time, it is right on the edge, just barely worth $20. It's great for fans of Batman, but if you're just looking for a good game, it's one of the better games that is currently out for VR. But I think that if this game came out next year or the year after there's more games released or even more games announced, it would not be able to sell for $20 in my opinion. But it is great beginning game for VR. It's good to get your VR legs in because, like I said, it doesn't actually cause any sickness that I have known of. It's really good to get an idea of what VR is capable of because of how interactive it is. And it overall is just a really good show off the VR to your friends kind of game. I showed off VR to a lot of friends this weekend, and all of them spent the majority of the time playing Batman. So I would say that it's barely worth $20, but it is worth getting if you have friends that don't know what VR is and you want to show it off to them. It's probably the best game out there for that. So thanks for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave me comments. Let me know what games you'd like to see me review in the future. And subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And goodbye.